Hello, and welcome to the Coaching Crowd podcast with me, Jo Wheatley, and my friend and co host, Zoe Hawkins.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us again this week. And today we're talking to you about how to use LinkedIn when you're training as a coach. And the reason we're bringing this to you is because we have lots of questions from uh, potential learners and people who are on our programs who want to become an independent coach, but they're currently in a full-time role and they're worried about posting on LinkedIn or building any kind of presence for fear of what their employer may think or find out. So we wanted to share with you our thoughts, ideas, and perspectives on how you can start to build a presence, use a platform like LinkedIn successfully whilst you're training to be a coach to set yourself up for success in the future. And we probably should start by talking about why LinkedIn, because it's one of the go-to platforms that Jo and I use. And maybe we'll share a few thoughts about that first.
We love LinkedIn. We just love it. I love what comes up in my feed, that I get to choose things that I'm interested in. Why do we love it from a professional point of view is because it's where our ideal clients exist from a kind of social media perspective. And, you get to find out about the person's professional background, what they're interested in. You can very easily request connections. You don't have to know the person. So it's that virtual networking platform for people that are interested in developing their professional careers, as well as their professional skills and training backgrounds. And also because you can create the profile that suits your brand, that's an honest representation of you and what you can bring and you can offer. And so all of those people get to see, what used to be your CV, or your bio very quickly and easily.
Yeah, and when we started out in business, we were already actively using LinkedIn. So I think I only had a network of, let's say, 700 people. But these were mainly like ex-colleagues, people I'd worked with in the past, people I'd been to uni with. And those are the people who are going to get you started when you do decide to step out and become an independent coach. So it's a great way to sort of nurture your network. And we were chatting behind the scenes before this podcast around, is it a company owned thing, your LinkedIn profile, or is it a personally owned thing? And I think I encourage all listeners, whether they want to become an independent coach or not, that your LinkedIn profile is about your personal brand. Now, that might be your personal brand as a leader and what you stand for in support of the organization. It may be a place where you share things around your values and ideas and opinions and expressions. So it is a personal profile, but it is important when you're thinking around stepping out into independent coaching, you don't create a conflict of interest for yourself. And I think that's where the concern is for many people. So we'll share with you some thoughts on how you can do it without creating that.
Where do you want to start?
I suppose the obvious place for many people is you can have upfront conversations. So if you think about a sideline business. Let's say, for example, you're working in, I don't know, communications and PR, and you have an eBay business on the side selling digital downloads of, I don't know, calendars or teaching resources. Let's say you were an ex teacher. Is that going to create the same sense of a conflict of interest as if you were having a sideline coaching business? I think fear comes up for people around this conflict of interest because it's easy to think of it as a conflict with the business when it's possibly a fear that you have around actually stepping into that identity as a coach and that future of setting up a business. So, what you can do if you're worried about that conflict of interest is talk to your employer and say, hey, look, I'm really enjoying my coaching training. I'm thinking I'd really like to be looking for some clients on the side. I'd only coach them on weekends or evenings. I'm just wondering if that creates a conflict of interest for us. And if I was to start posting about coaching on my LinkedIn profile, is that going to create a problem inside the organization? And just be very casual and open about your intentions. You don't have to say you plan to leave, and you may not actually know if or when you're going to leave your organization. So do it in an aligned way, so that you can relieve yourself of that tension.
I think in some roles, there's an expectation that you do post on a range of social media platforms related to your organization or your business, when there's new launches, when there's vacancies that are arriving, when you're going through an awards ceremony, to help build the profile of your organization. I think in that context, there's an opportunity within, the About You section on LinkedIn to talk about the fact that you have a role as, a career in this. And also there's this, this other part of you that is a coach or, coaches clients privately, like at certain times, maybe you want to specify that. And then I think it's just about being transparent, when you're speaking from different roles that you have. And I think there is a space to be able to celebrate and talk about the successes, the challenges, the learnings that you have in your day-to-day professional role, and also be able to talk about what you can offer in a different way. You may choose to not talk about your day job if you still have a day job outside of your coaching on LinkedIn, and actually LinkedIn becomes a space which is dedicated for you to develop your profile as a coach. So you'd still have all your employment history and it would still show that you are whatever your role is currently, but also the latest role would be you as a coach. And that would be the bit that shows at the top. So you can choose to talk solely from that. So I think there's a personal choice part of it. And then there's also, just an ethics, a checking in around that with an employer if you currently use it for something else.
There's also this piece around you can't necessarily differentiate the two. So if you are a leader in an organization and you are coaching and learning to be a coach, well, you're going to be using those coaching skills in your organization as a leader. So you can represent both sides to you by sharing your learning journey and your stories of how you're having conversations with people in your teams. Obviously, not the details of those conversations, but what a coaching approach looks like for you. You can start to build your brand as a leader who is passionate about coaching. That's not in conflict with the organization. And I think it can shine a light on the organization favorably in that they are creating a culture of leaders who have this approach. So I'd encourage you to think broadly around that and what you're essentially doing whilst you're learning to be a coach and building up towards wanting to become independent is priming your network around the skills, the capabilities, the purpose, the passion that you have for coaching. So in the future, if there's a date that you choose to exit the organization and become an independent coach, no one's like, what? Where did that come from? I didn't see that happening. They would just be like, yes, of course. Like I've been watching you grow and develop as this passionate coaching leader for years now. I'm really excited for the next phase of your journey. So, think about what's the reason that I'm doing this. Not just about leaving, but it's really about building your brand around who you are, because who you are is also how you're going to coach.
Yeah, and I think it's a big part of the developing identity. If you've always seen yourself as, I don't know, head of production, head of HR, or so on, you had a long career maybe in a particular field, or perhaps you've had a range of roles and have never really settled because you didn't even know coaching existed, and now you've discovered it. And I think that bit where you start telling people that you're a coach is a really pivotal point, and that can be in actual real life conversations, or it could be like we're saying, editing your profile, updating it and saying a coach. And you might think, oh, I can't do that because I don't know what I'm going to call my business yet. Just call it your name, coaching. To start with, you can change that while you're developing, because we also hear that when people say, oh, I'm not going to charge for my coaching while I'm training. It's a bit like when you do driving tests and it's all of a sudden when you pass your test, you can drive. That isn't really the case. You've been learning to drive and getting better and better, and you will continue to get better and better beyond that. But I think this idea that there's one point in time when you become a coach, for example, it just isn't real. I think there is an ethics piece. It's about understanding those core coaching competencies, but posting it on LinkedIn, actually editing your profile, I think is a significant part of developing a new identity or a development, if you like, in your professional identity.
Yeah. So there's already a few tips around how you can start to adjust your profile to bring in coaching. Other things that you want to be thinking about when you're learning to be a coach and how you're using LinkedIn is about actively growing your network. So if you're sat there with a LinkedIn network, let's say 200 people, 500 people, even 1,000 odd people, your network is going to be what supports you when you start to grow your business. So think about, who is it that you want to be coaching? And maybe you don't know exactly, but maybe you know that it's going to be the tech industry and it's going to be female leaders in the tech industry. Then start connecting with female leaders in the tech industry. And you can do that by, let's say you're a leader in the tech industry. You might come across somebody's profile. You might send them a message saying, hey, I see you're in the industry. I would love to connect. As we share mutual ideas and, and a mutual role. Or you might just connect without sending a message. And there isn't an intention there you're then going to start spamming them with your coaching offers, but you're starting to expand your network. And so when you share things about the challenges in the tech industry, how coaching is helping the tech industry, that is genuinely valuable to the people who you're connecting with. And so actively grow your network. Think purposefully around, who do you want to fill your network with, and how can you be of value to the people that you're connecting through the content that you're posting. And it doesn't all have to be coaching. You might be sharing white papers from your industry or different developments that are coming through your role as well. So it's worth putting some thought to, what is it that you want to talk about and share on LinkedIn, and how is that of value to the people that you're connecting with?
And do it every day, every single day, or Monday to Friday even. I personally love to do it if I'm in between things that I'm doing in my day, or maybe I'm watching something and there's adverts on, or I'm sat at the bus waiting to pick my kids up from school. Like those bits of time, it's something productive that I can do. But for me personally, I really see LinkedIn as a learning tool. And that's how I tend to use it, or one of the most enjoyable parts for me. So yes, there's me sharing content, but it's also about me absorbing content. I love to read other people's views on things. I love to see what they're doing, the training that they're doing. And I go off on a little research rabbit hole often as a result of spending time or seeing what my connections bring up. So I'd encourage you, when you're thinking about growing and developing your network, to yes, use it to connect with your ideal clients, and also think about how it's going to help you to learn more about their needs. What are they posting about? What are the things that they're getting frustrated with? And does that align with what you might be able to support them with from a coaching perspective? You might be able to use LinkedIn if you want to create a focus group. So if you are thinking, I'm not sure about my niche, I think it might be this, you could ask or invite people to a focus group from your network. There's a lot of value and also support and help, I think, on LinkedIn as a platform. People wanting to support people to be successful in what they choose to do.
Yeah. And I think what you're saying there is consistency. So every single coach starts with zero. It might be 0 posts or 0 connections, or, at some point you have created a brand new LinkedIn profile. So if you consistently add people to your network every single day, you are going to grow your network. Not all of them will accept. So you need to detach from the outcome of whether people accept your invitation connections or not. But you can consistently connect with people, and connect with connections that are like second level connections. Don't go for connections that are far removed from your network already, but people who are once removed from where you're at now, because there will be a commonality. You might both know the same person or something like that. So, but yeah, consistency is key in everything that you do in setting yourself up for success.
So there's growing your network, both from the point of view of ideal clients, but also from the point of view of using it as a learning tool or route to that. Then there is obviously you posting, you building your own brand, testing out content, noticing what gets traction, like what do people comment on? And commenting might be commenting on your actual post. It might be that they direct message you because they're not somebody that likes to post out in that way. But also, as Zoe's already said, and we often say, detaching from the outcome, like the number of likes and comments does not necessarily relate to the business generation that you might get from a post. And we've seen that in our own business a lot. So post, I mean, it's a personal thing, really. Some people like to schedule posts and do it in a block because that suits the way that they're their heart and their brain works, and other people prefer to post in the moment when they feel particularly passionate or just in flow, basically, and wanting to share things. And also, if you've got opportunities to take photos that you think might resonate or mean something to you, that often can work well in the moment. But you do you, and you choose when you want to post. But what we would suggest is post often. It also takes time to get over that, oh, but I've already posted today, or I've already posted 3 times this week, people are going to get bored of me. I've certainly felt that way, and have overcome that, because realizing that only a tiny proportion of your actual network are ever going to see the things that you post. So it's about building that. The more that people engage with your posts, the more that the algorithm tends to like that, and it will then tend to show your next post, more to those individuals, and so on. So having an idea of who your ideal client is and being able to write posts to that ideal client can help you to get into flow.
Mm. And you're not writing posts, which is buy my stuff, buy my stuff, buy my stuff. Like, that's not what we're talking about. In the early days, if you're still training to be a coach, you might be sharing something that you'd learned on your coaching program, or a conversation that you had where you used a coaching approach versus how you'd normally talk, and the impact that it had. So you're talking really about stories, you're sharing stories of your coaching style. I shared a post on LinkedIn about my chickens and how like they were really resourceful in escaping their pen every day, and how we should all have a chicken mentality. Something really silly, but it got a huge amount of likes and comments. And so it's not always serious and, all about a lesson that you must do. You can share the light-hearted side of who you are as well, like bring some of your personality forward. And I think that can feel very new when you're coming to LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is, I remember when I first started using it, it felt a very scary professional network where you had to have this very serious professional cloak on all the time. And I think it's, for me, about using LinkedIn whilst you're training is really about finding your voice, finding your authenticity, being relaxed in the way that you talk about coaching, making it easy for you to talk about coaching rather than having to sit down and craft like LinkedIn posts that are going to be really impactful. When Joe and I sit down to do a LinkedIn post now, we'll sort of sit down. If something doesn't come easily, we don't post. But if there's something there, we write it, we post it. It's not thought through or planned and methodical. So I think using LinkedIn whilst you're training and developing to be a coach will help you in that authenticity and ease of how you want to talk about coaching and who you are and what you bring.
Now, doing the training gives you loads of content for posts. That's the great news. So when people sign up to our training programs, if you or I speak to them, or Shelley, like, we encourage them to post about the fact that you have booked onto a training. How are you feeling about that? What's the purpose of it? They'll have usually shared their story with us when they have a conversation to, inquire, is this the right fit for me? And so on. And that's going back to that marker in the sand. It's actually putting yourself out there as somebody that is really interested in this and is committed to growing in this particular area. Then you've got all the pre-work that you do, certainly on our course, loads and loads of content to inspire and be a catalyst for content. And I think the great thing is, if you are in a full-time role, you can really think about what you're learning in the context of a working environment, which will be so relevant for a LinkedIn audience. Or maybe there are previous experiences that you've had that maybe relate to that, or thinking about how are you going to use that moving forward? How is it going to make a difference to you? Have you just had a paradigm shift in the way that you've been viewing or approaching things? And so, our programs, as you'll all know, are quite long. So our level 7 is 24 lessons. So you've got pre-work 24 times. And then you've got the actual practice sessions where you're also getting feedback on your coaching. So that's something that you can share, maybe your own reflections on the coaching that you've been doing that you can share without sharing the details of the coachee that you're working with, because that's their information. But just to really kind of inspire you all that there's loads of opportunities to to share things that can be useful for other people. And it's often the most simple things that resonate the most with people rather than the most complicated. And I think for me, I used to think, well, with lots of different areas, really. Like it'd have to be something really brand new and really like earth shattering. And it would just give me a blank mind, and it would reduce me to a really small thing. Now it's actually thinking about, or as I listen to other people and I notice, what do I enjoy hearing about? What do I enjoy reading? And it is, I say, it often is something simple, something I already know, but maybe a slightly different, sort of lens on it. But that's how you'll develop your own brand and your own voice. And you'll often hear people feed back to you about what they hear is different in your approach or what they're interested to hear more from you on.
Yeah. So hopefully that gives you some ideas of how you can use LinkedIn whilst you're developing as a coach to set yourself up for success when you finally do want to take that leap to become an independent coach. And if you haven't yet trained as a coach and you're interested in doing so, then come and check out our courses at igcompany.co.uk.
And if you want to connect with Zoe or I on LinkedIn, feel free to find us and we'll happily connect with you.
Yeah, absolutely.